In Pella, Macedonia's grand capital, a courier reached the royal palace gates, bearing urgent word. "Prince Alexander, the king demands your presence at camp at once," he declared, bowing respectfully. It was widely known that the king's recent strikes on Greek cities had faltered. Forced to pull back, Philip called his son for a pressing meeting. Arriving at the army tents, he found his father poring over maps on a rough table, showing some unease. "I'm here, father. I hear the offensive was halted," Alexander said, his tone steady, aware of the moment's weight.
"My son, we Macedonians are like rams. We step back only to charge harder."
He laid a firm hand on Alexander's shoulder, conveying both burden and trust.
"That's why I summoned you. Together, we'll deliver the decisive strike against those cursed Thebans and Athenians. This time, they'll feel Macedonia's full might."
Greece was rife with deep tensions among its city-states, traditionally fierce in guarding their freedom. Athens, Thebes, Sparta, and lesser polis lived in constant vigilance, each wary of the other's growth or sway. Philip's rising fame as a strategist and his troops' discipline alarmed the Greeks, who saw Macedonia as a savage and perilous force. Yet many Athenians and Thebans underestimated the danger, clinging to past glories and believing their unity could counter the Macedonian host. Philip II's ascent showed the Macedonians wouldn't halt soon. Gaining resources like northern gold mines and bolstering his military ranks gave Macedonia an edge to steadily assail or subdue any opposing polis. Athens, with its naval legacy and smaller land army, held a long-standing feud with Thebes, whose fighters were admired for their order and bravery. But Macedonia's rise forced Athenians and Thebans to set aside differences. Their alliance sprang not from brotherhood, but survival's stark need. The Athenians offered mainly naval skill, but also sent sizable hoplite infantry to bolster the coalition's foot soldiers. Thebes supplied the famed Sacred Band and a robust infantry corps, lauded since defeating Sparta as one of Greece's finest phalanxes. This uneasy pact took stance at Chaeronea to halt what they saw as Macedonia's swelling tide, led by Philip II and his heir, Alexander. The looming clash promised to reshape Greece's power balance forever. When the armies met on Chaeronea's plain, each leader arrayed his forces to maximize weapons, training, and ground. The Greeks split their line, Athenians on the left, strong with hoplites, Thebans on the right, bearing pride from humbling Sparta. In the center, mixed troops from other polis aided the push. Conversely, Philip II and Alexander positioned the Macedonian army to leverage both phalanx might and cavalry speed. Philip took the right wing with part of his phalanx and hypaspists, elite light infantry tying heavy phalanx to other units. Alexander led the left with the hetario cavalry, a shock force and the young commander's pride. Macedonia's edge lay chiefly in adopting sarissas, spears over 5 meters long, far outranging Greek hoplites' arms. In phalanx form, each soldier wielded his sarissa two-handed, forming a spiked wall to repel foes before they could strike. Rigorous training let these spearmen move with fair agility. The Macedonian cavalry worked in tandem with infantry. Rather than charge alone, Philip and Alexander held them until phalanxes pinned the enemy line, opening breaches and scattering hoplite ranks. Then cavalry surged, hitting exposed flanks and rears. Thus, unity among phalanxes, hypaspists, and cavalry made Macedonia's army adaptable and ready for diverse fight conditions, catching Greeks off guard. Among Greek forces, Thebes boasted the most revered unit, the Sacred Band, an elite group of 150 lover pairs, picked from Boeotia's bravest. This band fostered deep loyalty, fighting side by side, Each strove to prove valor for self and partner. Their invincible fame stemmed from crushing Sparta at Leuctra, showing Greece that Spartan rule could fall. At Chaeronea, they held a key spot in Thebes' line, facing Alexander's wing directly. The Sacred Band's prestige made it a prime target, as breaking it would shatter Greek morale for Macedonia. The battle opened with Philip II's phalanxes advancing rightward, stepping steadily toward Athenian ranks. Combat erupted fiercely, the fight seeming balanced. Then, Philip ordered his troops to fall back. Athenians read this as weakness, pressing forward boldly to exploit the Macedonians' seeming falter, sensing victory near. Meanwhile, on the left, Alexander faced Theban troops. His cavalry launched swift strikes against the mighty Sacred Band. Thebans, used to battling standard hoplites, struggled with cavalry's speed. Each charge forced orderly retreats, but javelins and long spears thinned their ranks. The young heir used his mount's agility to erode enemy defenses. Theban shields, marked with Hercules' club, grew unwieldy as Alexander's hurled assagae battered them. On the opposite flank, the Athenians pressed against Philip. Thinking they had him cornered, the Macedonian king reversed his ploy. He commanded his phalanxes to surge forward with full might, while dispatching Hypaspists to brace the formation's edges. Philip's withdrawal, which seemed a desperate move, was in truth a ruse to create an opening in the Greek coalition's front, enabling Alexander's cavalry to sweep in and strike the Athenians' flank and rear, catching them utterly off guard. Witnessing this crushing assault, the Greek forces began to buckle. The Athenians, fearing encirclement and reeling from simultaneous hits by phalanxes and cavalry, saw retreat as their only escape to preserve their lives. The Sacred Band, steadfast in its famed valor, still held against the Macedonian lines on the other flank. But once the Athenians fled, Alexander and the Hetauri cavalry turned again to confront the resolute Thebans. Unlike the Athenians, they resolved to stand until the end, fighting a brutal struggle that history recalls as a heroic stand for the Hellenic cities. Ultimately, the Theban flank was crushed, the Athenians scattered, and Chaeronea's plain lay strewn with shields, spears, and fallen warriors. The Macedonian army cemented its dominance there, and the victory over Thebes' finest is etched in history as Alexander's first major triumph as a commander. The final toll at Chaeronea was staggering. Roughly 2,000 Greek soldiers perished on the field, including every valiant member of Thebes' Sacred Band. Another 4,000 were captured and enslaved, leaving a gaping wound in many city-states. Philip II's victory stood unchallenged, and Athens and Thebes, once proud, bowed before Macedonian might. Amid the bodies of Greece's best warriors, Macedonia's repute as an unbeatable force solidified. Thebes, shamed by losing its legendary unit, yielded to the new order. Athens, once a naval titan, had to bargain to avoid worse ruin. Each polis then realized the Greek world had entered a new age, defined by Philip II's rule, and crucially, Alexander's ascent. Alexander was celebrated as Chaeronea's great champion. His name rang through the ranks of seasoned fighters who, though hardened by war, saw the youth as a daring leader with rare genius. As dusk fell, Philip, with his son beside him, accepted surrenders and sealed pacts establishing Macedonian sway over Greece. Chaeronea decided Thebes and Athens' fates, lifted Philip II to his zenith, and cleared the path for Alexander to rise as the next grand conqueror of the Hellenic sphere.